Hi, you've reached the next episode of the Comic Anthologist.
And if you want to reach us, you could hit us up at thecomicanthologist@gmail.com.
And if you like what we're talking about or hearing what we're talking about or saying,
Definitely hit that subscribe button and we'll go from there.
and press that bell or press the like button just to
for
let
all
you
the new updates that's coming through.
Exactly. And press the like button just to let us know that you really like this episode. Now, today we're going to talk about the X-Men character known as Cable,
Yes, and he made his first appearance in Uncanny X-Men 201.
created by Chris Claremont, but then
As a newborn baby.
As a newborn baby, right. And the child is basically, as the newborn baby, was the child of Scott Summers, aka Cyclops, and the clone of Jean Grey known as Madeline Pryor.
That was created by Mr. Sinister.
Which is just another story for another time, because it can get kind of convoluted.
Of course, because Apocalypse has his hand in that one or whatnot. But we're not going to get there and go there. We're going to talk about Cable today.
And so basically what happens is Nathan Christopher Charles Summers makes his full appearance as an adult in New Mutants 87, which was back in 1990.
Oh yeah, because the other one was January of 1986. So
Right,
this
exactly.
one was March of 1990.
Yeah,
when he
exactly.
made his first appearance.
Exactly. And so basically Cable was created to be like a military leader foiled opposite of Charles Xavier.
Because when the editors at Marvel Comics had created the character, they had charged Rob Liefield to create the character and just gave him just one little sentence, one little saying, man of action, the opposite of Xavier.
And basically also as well, when Cable was created, it was created by not only with Rob Liefeld, but it was also created with Louise Simonson as
Yes, Louise Simonson and Rob Liefeld. That's basically where they had to create him. But like I said, he made his we both said he made his appearance as a child. But then we'll get into why he's an adult, and those two are one and the same.
And basically, when he was a child, he didn't have the metal eye or the cybernetic eye or the metal arm. But later on, when he was still a baby, he was infected by the villain known as Apocalypse. Because basically what we talked about Mr. Sinister and helping create him, basically Mr. Sinister, which is another X-Men villain, created Cable, the baby, to be the one to take down Apocalypse, because Mr. Sinister and Apocalypse have beef with one another.
Even though Apocalypse did help create and give Mr. Sinister his immortality, so to speak, and whatnot, to basically do whatever he wanted.
And Mr. Sinister didn't want to be subservient to Apocalypse, and that was hence one of the major reasons why the baby, which will be known as Cable, is basically a weapon against Apocalypse. But reason being that the baby was a threat to Apocalypse, and Apocalypse basically set up the baby to be infected with something called a Techno-Organic virus. And so basically what went down was the group known as X Factor, which is the original versions of the X-Men, Scott Summers basically had to make a painful choice to send his son into the future after his son was infected with the Techno-Organic virus by Apocalypse.
The thing is, and it was basically one of the clan Ascani, which we'll get into at another time when we talk about the whole complete origin of Cable. But the clan Ascani had sent one of their own from the future to take him back into the distant future. But the thing is, it was a one-way trip.
And basically they did that because they had the technology to save the baby from being taken over by the Techno-Organic virus. Now, with Cable's powers, as he got older, he had more telepathic and telekinetic powers, but what we see mostly in the books, he uses his telekinetic powers to keep the virus at bay, and it already turned one of his arms into a basically a Techno-Organic metallic arm, and again, in one of his eyes, Techno-Organic.
Yeah, it's a bionic eye, and the arm is bionic to a degree
because of the Techno-Organic virus.
Yeah, because there's no flesh left. The Techno-Organic virus is designed to consume the host through and through, and then eventually take out the host.
Right. And in this case, well, in Cable's case, Cable has been pretty popular with the X-Men since the 90s.
Oh yeah.
And he had his own book, but he's also well known as a frenemy to Deadpool, which we see in the movie Deadpool 2.
Oh yeah.
Because Cable was played by Josh Brolin,
Of course.
AKA which they were making jokes about also as well, when Josh Brolin also played Thanos in Infinity War as well. So, but yeah, throughout the books or throughout time, all these years, Cable has been a frenemy to Deadpool, sometimes allies and sometimes enemies, but they're still like working together.
And not only that, too, just to interject, that he's also been a sometime ally, and sometimes he's gotten in the way of the X-Men as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, like I said before, when he was created as a man of action.
Right.
And total opposite of Xavier's dream of the coexistence of man and mutant. Well, his version of coexistence, which was, oh yeah, we'll have coexistence of man and mutant, all right.
Right.
By force.
Right, and he created the group, a faction of the New Mutants, is at one point, at the point where after he made his first appearance. Shortly after that, the first series of the New Mutants was canceled at issues 100, and basically that was the first appearance of a paramilitary group of a faction of the X-Men known as X-Force.
Yes, and X-Force basically did everything that, you know, how X-Men were there to try to stop things from blowing out of control.
But without killing their adversaries.
X-Force is a different story.
Take on it. Well, altogether, they did not hesitate to take out their villains or bad guys that was deemed a threat, and they wanted to have the threat taken out permanently.
And you also had the first appearance of Domino as well.
Exactly.
Domino and a few others that he's worked with in terms of Blacksmith. And Blacksmith was his long-term ally.
Mentor, right.
Yep, that basically guided Cable through a lot of missions in terms of what was about to happen in the future, since Cable is considered a mutant time traveler.
Exactly. And that's as a result of him being a time traveler, being sent to the past, I mean not to the past, sent to the distant future, but then has to come back to the present to battle the evils that plague the X-Men and the world to a degree. And just basically he's traveling back and forth in time. And basically he has this ship called, used to have this ship called Grimalkin, which was
named after the Charles Xavier's, the mansion is located on Grimalkin Lane.
Right, and then the computer, the sentient computer that ran his ship was known as Grimalkin. And so, with that being said...
And he used to do a lot of body sliding, because that's where the time travel aspect came in. He would just do body slide by one, and he would go to whatever time frame that he had either thought about or had pre-programmed in his arm right before he made that jump.
And see, well, what they did in Deadpool 2, they didn't really go into the origin of where Cable came from. They would just accept that he came from the future, but they didn't go into the convoluted backstory of his origin and everything. And I think that was a good idea what they did.
Well, yeah, because the thing is, if they had gone through the convoluted thing, it would have basically confused a lot of the viewers.
And probably would have potentially killed the film, too.
That's true. So, in any case, what's your thought on your first storyline for Cable?
Well, my first storyline, or first... I would say favorite storyline for Cable is when he made his first appearance.
Right.
And then when he started X-Force, I thought that was pretty good because it showed a different side of the X-Men that you hadn't seen before. Only little hints of it when Wolverine was taking out the bad guys his way, which some of the X-Men didn't want to do like Wolverine's way. But I kind of agree with Wolverine, take out the threat permanently or whatnot. So X-Force was kind of like an extension of that. And basically, one thing I also liked about Cable running X-Force is that he was no-nonsense soldier or whatnot to handle what needed to be handled, and didn't hesitate to take them out.
Right. And I would have to say mine would have to be the Executioner's Zone.
Okay.
And that's basically where Cable had to go up against his actual clone, which goes by the name of Strife.
And Strife was created to basically, they were going to transfer Cable's mind into when he was a baby, when he got taken into the future. Originally what was going to happen was the Techno-Organic virus was basically eating him alive, and they created a clone of the baby to basically, just in case if the body withered away too much from the Techno-Organic virus,
was to transfer the mind
to the clone baby. But unfortunately, Apocalypse's forces attacked right around that time, and they stole the clone. And then Apocalypse raised that clone
to be the opposite of Cable, to basically hamper Cable's efforts and everything and actions, so that way he could still proceed with his own agenda in terms of basically only the stronger survive and the survival of the fittest.
And it's basically the old adage of all these villains have their own Dr. Dooms. Like the Fantastic Four has Dr. Doom, Iron Man has the Mandarin.
Right.
Then you have the Hulk has the Abomination.
And also the leader.
The leader and the Red Hulk.
Yep.
But in this case, for Cable, Strife was his enemy, but you're having an enemy basically like your twin brother is your enemy, and you don't even know it.
Exactly. It's one of those things where it's me versus me, but the other me was created as a direct result to try to help the other one, but it didn't quite turn out that way.
And Apocalypse turned around and twisted the baby into being Strife, and it caused a whole bunch of problems, which was
For
just
several years.
Yeah, just like what you said in the Executioner song.
Yes.
And also came up in there was another storyline that popped up with Strife, which was the Messiah War.
Yes.
And so, but recently, now going to, because I'm not going to get into the convoluted story of Cable because
Strife.
or Strife because it's quite lengthy. But recently, the original Cable that was introduced back in the day, back in the 1990s, was killed by his younger counterpart, and that was as a result in the storyline called Extermination, which just recently wrapped up like a few months ago, which led into the new Uncanny, basically the new volume of Uncanny X-Men now.
Right.
And basically, the older Cable was taken out by his younger counterpart, and plus, for the reason being, because he felt that the older Cable was being too sentimental and being in the present day with the X-Men.
Yeah, but that's the whole thing. It's just that should have been more than enough to sit up there and try to counter him, but obviously it wasn't because the younger one thought that things weren't working the way he wanted them to work.
Exactly.
So that's why he did what he did.
Exactly. But now there's a newer, younger version of Cable running around in the Marvel Universe now as well, and now he's leading the new iteration of X-Force, and basically the older one, like I said, was killed as a result in that time in the storyline known as Extermination. And in Extermination, not going to get too much into it, was basically a few years ago, Brian Michael Bendis had brought the original 5 of the X-Men into the present day of the Marvel Universe.
From the past to the present.
From the past
to the present. Yes.
But then the longer time they stayed out here in the present day, they were more of jeopardizing their future. Their own future.
Because
So
it was basically causing a time paradox.
And so basically the younger Cable turned around, killed the older Cable, and started kidnapping the younger versions of the X-Men, so that way he could set them up to get taken back in time so they could live out their lives, which leads to the present day. So you see what I mean about being convoluted and kind of crazy, but
Well,
it is what it is.
But in any case, this is another edition of the Comic Anthologist, and like I said, if you want to reach us, you reach us at thecomicanthologist@gmail.com.
And if you want to have any questions, or if you think some of the information that we're talking about is wrong in regards to
Please hit us up.
Yeah, please hit us up and just send us an email or just answering your comments. But we thank you for watching, and again, hit that like button and hit that subscribe button.
And thank you for tuning in. Alrighty, until then, peace.